The outlaw they called Beast hadn't spoken to another soul in 12 years. So when the pregnant woman collapsed at his cabin door in the dead of night, begging for shelter, everyone expected him to turn her away at gunpoint. What he did instead would expose the town's darkest secret, and nearly cost him his life. Colt Beast Holloway lived where civilization ended and the wilderness began. 3 miles up Widow's Peak, past the last wagon trail, past the last marker. The town below, Redemption Creek, had a single rule about him: stay away. His cabin was a fortress of solitude. 1 room, hand-built from timber he'd felled himself. A potbelly stove that kept him alive through winters that froze men solid. Shelves lined with books, his only companions in this godforsaken territory. No telegraph, no visitors. No connection to the world that had destroyed him. Every morning Colt chopped wood. Every afternoon he hunted elk or trapped beaver. Every evening he read by oil lamp until exhaustion dragged him to his bedroll. It was a half-life, but it was his. Until October 14th, 1887, when that half-life shattered. The pregnant woman appeared at sunset, clutching his porch rail like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her face was gray as ash, lips tinged blue. Blood stained her temple where she'd clearly taken a fall. Her belly was swollen, 7, maybe 8 months along. "Please," she whispered, each word a struggle. "I'm sick. I can't walk another step. My baby, please. Just one night." Colt stood in the doorway, his hand instinctively moving to the Colt 45 at his hip. She wore a torn calico dress, once fine, but now muddy and blood-stained. Her boots were worn through. A simple gold wedding band caught the dying light. She didn't belong here. Nobody came up here, not in 12 years. "Who are you?" His voice was rust and gravel from disuse. Martha Thornton." She coughed, and specks of blood appeared on her palm. Her hand went to her belly protectively. They're coming for me. Please, I know who you are. I know what they did to you. Please, my baby." Colt's jaw clenched. She knew. Of course she knew. Everyone in Redemption Creek knew the story of the Beast. The school teacher who'd supposedly murdered his student, who'd been run out of town by a lynch mob, who'd fled to the mountains rather than hang from a cottonwood tree. He should close the door. Should have learned his lesson 12 years ago when the town destroyed him. When they'd burned his schoolhouse, shot his horse, left a noose on his doorstep until he had no choice but to run. But something in her eyes, pure animal terror, and the way she cradled her unborn child, made him step aside. "One night," he growled. "Then you're gone at first light." Martha collapsed into his only chair, a hand-carved piece he'd made during his second winter. Colt hadn't had a visitor since Rose, since the trial, since they'd called him a monster and driven him into these mountains to die. He poured water from his bucket, handed it to her in a tin cup. She drank like she'd crossed the Mojave. "Thank you," she breathed. "God bless you." Colt studied her. Mid-20s, maybe younger. Refined features, elegant even in distress. Her hands showed recent calluses. A woman who'd known comfort but had fallen on hard times. And that belly. The child would come soon. "You're him," Martha said suddenly, her eyes focusing on his bearded face. "The teacher, Colt Holloway, the one they said killed that girl. Don't." Colt's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. "You need water or you need to leave. Those are your choices." She took another sip with shaking hands, then set the cup down. "I know you didn't do it. I know what really happened to that girl. To Rose." The name hit Colt like a bullet to the chest. Rose Thornton, 17 years old, bright, curious, passionate about learning. His student at the Redemption Creek schoolhouse, found dead 12 years ago at the bottom of Raven's Ravine, her neck broken, her body battered. They'd blamed him. No evidence. Just suspicion and rage. He'd been the last person to see her alive, they said. He'd kept her after school, they said. He'd been inappropriate, they whispered. The trial had been a nightmare of innuendo and frontier justice. He'd been acquitted by a traveling circuit judge, But Redemption Creek had already convicted him. How? Colt whispered, his voice barely audible. How do you know? Before I tell you what Martha revealed, let me ask you this. If you were Colt, would you trust this stranger or throw her out before she brought more trouble to your door? Comment below. I'm reading every answer, and if you're already hooked, hit that like button. Martha's eyes hardened, grief and rage mixing in equal measure. Because Rose was my sister, my older sister, and I finally found proof of who really killed her. The cabin seemed to shrink. The walls pressed in. Colt gripped the table edge, his knuckles white. What proof? Mayor Thornton, our father, and his golden boy. Martha's voice shook with fury. She pulled a leather journal from inside her dress, held it up like a talisman. Rose kept a diary. She wrote everything, and I mean everything. Colt couldn't breathe. What did she write? David Thornton, the mayor's son from his first marriage, our half-brother. Martha's voice cracked. Rose wrote about him forcing himself on her, threatening her, 6 months of hell, of him cornering her in the barn, of him getting more violent when she tried to tell our mother. The night she died, she was running to the marshal in Silver City. She'd finally gathered the courage. David caught her first. The world tilted. Colt sat down hard on his cot. Mayor Richard Thornton, Rose's father, had led the mob against him, had stood in the makeshift courtroom, tears streaming down his weathered face, pointing at Colt with righteous fury, had called him a predator, a monster, a killer who'd stolen his precious daughter, all while knowing the truth. Why now? Colt demanded. Why 12 years later? Because I just found it. Martha's composure cracked. Rose and I were close. After she died, Father boxed up all her things, said it was too painful. He gave Mother a few items, Rose's Bible, her locket, but kept everything else locked in his study. Said he'd go through it when he was ready. She wiped her eyes roughly. He never did. 3 months ago, I was cleaning Father's study while he was in Silver City on business. I found a loose floorboard. Rose's diary was hidden underneath, along with letters she'd written to the marshal but never sent. And the diary. Every entry for the last 6 months of her life. The fear, the shame, the violence. Martha's voice broke completely. The last entry was written the morning she died. She said she was going to the marshal, that she couldn't take it anymore, that David had threatened to kill her if she told anyone, but she'd rather die than live like that. Colt felt sick. Did she mention my name? Yes. Martha met his eyes. She said you were the only person who'd noticed something was wrong, that you'd asked if she was okay, if she needed help. She said she almost told you, but David had warned her that Father would destroy anyone she talked to, that Father would protect him no matter what. So he'd been targeted from the start. The moment Rose died, Richard Thornton had needed a scapegoat, and Colt had been convenient, an outsider, an educated man from back east, someone the frontier town never fully trusted. Why come to me? Colt asked. Why not go straight to the marshal? I tried. Martha's laugh was bitter. Marshal Briggs, Father's old army buddy, said the diary could be a forgery, that I was a grieving sister seeing conspiracies. He took my statement and said he'd look into it. And that night, Father showed up at my house. Martha's hand went to her temple, where the blood had dried. I'm married now, to Thomas Walker, a ranch hand. We have a small homestead on the edge of town. Father came after Thomas left for the cattle drive. She shuddered. He was calm at first, said I was confused. That grief and pregnancy were making me see things that weren't there. Then he saw the diary on my table. What happened? He grabbed for it. We struggled. He pushed me. I fell against the stove. I'm 7 months pregnant, Mr. Holloway. He could have killed us both. Maybe that was the point. Martha's hand went to her belly. But I'm stronger than he thought. I grabbed the diary and ran, took my horse and rode into the mountains. I didn't know where to go. The marshal was compromised. Father has connections everywhere. He's been mayor for 15 years, runs half the businesses in town. She looked at Colt with desperate hope. But I remembered you. The man Father destroyed. I thought, maybe you'd help me. Maybe you'd want the truth to come out as much as I do. A sound outside. Horses whinnying. The jingle of spurs. They both froze. They followed you. Colt moved to the window, careful to stay in shadow. Through the trees, torches flickered like angry fireflies. 6, maybe 7 riders. They moved with purpose, spreading out to surround the cabin. Oh, God! Martha's face went white. I was so careful. I took the old mining trails. Your horse left tracks, and they know this mountain. Colt cursed himself. He should have known. Should have turned her away. Now he was trapped in the nightmare all over again. Colt Holloway! The mayor's voice boomed through the darkness. We know you're in there. Send out my daughter. She's sick, with child. We're here to bring her home. Home? Martha laughed, a broken sound. He wants this diary. It's the only evidence. Colt's mind raced. He could hand her over. End this. Return to his isolation. The town would call him a hero, maybe? Or more likely, they'd say he'd kidnapped a pregnant woman. No. He'd been the scapegoat once before. He wouldn't be one again. There's a root cellar, he said, moving to the corner of the cabin. Hidden under the bearskin rug. It's small, but you'll fit. Get in. What are you going to do? Talk to them. Buy time. Colt pulled up the rug, revealing a trap door. Whatever happens, don't come out. Not unless I say the word Rose. That's the signal. Understand? Martha nodded, clutching the diary. Thank you for believing me. I haven't decided if I believe you yet, Colt said. But I know Richard Thornton is a liar. That's enough. Colt opened the door as Martha disappeared into the cellar. 7 men sat on horseback in his clearing, their torches creating harsh shadows. The mayor sat at the front, flanked by Marshal Briggs and 5 others Colt recognized from town. The blacksmith, the saloon owner, the bank manager, the preacher, Redemption Creek's finest citizens. Richard Thornton had aged in 12 years. Gray streaked his beard, deep lines carved around his mouth, but his eyes still burned with that same zealous hatred Colt remembered from the trial. Where is she, Beast? Colt leaned against the doorframe, his hand near his holstered Colt. Who? Don't play games. Martha Walker. Her horse is tied a quarter-mile down the trail. She came here. Lots of folks pass through these mountains. A pregnant woman, alone, at sunset? The mayor's smile was cold. She's sick, confused, saying terrible things about our family. We need to get her home. Get her to the doctor. She was here, Colt admitted. Showed up about an hour ago, rambling about old ghosts. I gave her water and she left. Headed deeper into the mountains. It was a weak lie, but it was all he had. Marshal Briggs dismounted, his hand on his pistol. Colt, we can search the cabin. We have cause. Mrs. Walker is a missing person, possibly in danger. She's with child. You have no jurisdiction up here. This is territorial land. And last I checked, you're a town marshal, not a territorial ranger. We're concerned citizens, the mayor said smoothly. Looking for my daughter. Surely you understand, unless you have something to hide. The implication hung in the air. The beast, hiding another woman. History repeating. Get a warrant or get off my land, Colt said flatly. The mayor's mask slipped. You're lying, just like you lied about Rose. I never touched your daughter. Colt's voice was ice. But you know who did. Something flickered in Richard's face. Fear, quickly masked. What did Martha tell you? The mayor asked quietly. Nothing that made sense. She's sick, delusional. Pregnancy and grief have broken her mind. Richard dismounted, took a step closer. Whatever she said, whatever she showed you, it's fantasy. The ravings of a woman who can't accept that her sister is gone. Then you have nothing to worry about. I'm worried about you, Colt. The mayor's voice dripped false concern. You've been alone up here too long. Isolated, half wild. If you're hiding Martha, if you're believing her delusions, you're putting yourself in danger. Again. You remember what happened last time. It was a threat wrapped in concern. Colt had heard it before, 12 years ago. The town's way of saying, conform or be destroyed. I'm not hiding anyone, Colt said. Now get off my property. The mayor sighed. then nodded to his men. "Search the cabin." They moved forward as a unit. Colt blocked the door. "I said no." "And I said search." The mayor pulled a pistol from his belt. "Step aside, beast. This is bigger than you." The gun didn't scare Colt. He'd died inside 12 years ago. But then he heard it. A soft gasp from below. Martha, her pregnancy making it hard to stay silent. The mayor heard it too. His smile widened, triumphant. "In the cellar. Get her." 2 men rushed Colt. He'd been a schoolteacher once, soft and bookish. But 12 years of splitting wood, hunting game, surviving winters that killed weaker men. It had forged something harder, something that knew how to fight. He dropped the first man with a punch to the jaw, threw the second into the porch rail with a crack of breaking wood. But there were 5 more. They swarmed him. Fists and boots. Colt tasted blood, felt ribs crack. Someone hit him with a torch. Stars exploded across his vision. Through the chaos, he saw the mayor stepping over him, heading for the cabin. "No!" Colt surged up, grabbed the fallen torch, and swung it like a club. Fire and wood connected with skull. A man went down screaming. Colt swung again, catching another in the knee. The blacksmith tackled him. They went down hard, rolling in the dirt. Colt got an elbow free, drove it into the man's throat. The blacksmith gagged, released him. Colt stumbled to his feet, stumbled inside. The mayor was pulling up the bearskin rug, revealing the cellar door. "Stop!" Colt lunged. Richard spun, gun raised, and Martha burst from the cellar, the diary in hand, her face fierce despite her condition. "Too late, Father," she screamed. "I already sent it. The diary, copies of the letters, everything. They're with the territorial marshal in Silver City." The mayor's face went white. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Martha held up the diary. "I gave copies to the stagecoach driver 3 days ago. Paid him extra to deliver them personally. By now, Marshal Garrett has read every word. He'll be here within the week." Colt blinked. He didn't know if she was telling the truth, but the mayor didn't know either. "This is insane, right? Drop a fire emoji if you think Colt should fight back, or a broken heart if he should surrender. And hit that subscribe button. This story is about to explode. You won't believe what happens next." Richard's hand trembled, the gun wavering. "You've destroyed everything. My position, my family, my legacy. You destroyed our family when you covered up David's crime." Martha's voice broke with rage and grief. "Rose was 17 years old. She was beautiful and kind, and he took her from us, and you let him. It was an accident." The mayor's composure shattered. "David didn't mean to kill her. They were arguing. She was threatening him, and he just wanted her to stop talking." The other men had gathered in the doorway, hearing everything. Their faces shifted. Confusion, horror, disgust. "Mayor," Marshal Briggs whispered, "what is she talking about?" "Nothing. She's lying. The diary shows everything, Father." Martha's voice was raw. "I've read it 100 times. I've seen Rose's words, her fear, her shame. I've read how David forced himself on her, how he threatened to kill her if she told. How she begged God for help." Colt felt sick, and when she finally ran, David caught her. "She was already dead when I got there," Richard shouted. "What was I supposed to do? Turn in my own son? Destroy his future over a mistake?" "A mistake?" Martha's laugh was broken glass. "He raped her for 6 months. He threatened her. He murdered her. She was going to ruin him." The mayor's face was red, veins bulging in his neck. "One accusation and David's reputation would have been destroyed. His engagement to the governor's daughter gone. His political future finished. For what? A situation that got out of hand?" "She was his sister," Martha said quietly. "Your daughter, and he murdered her." The clearing went silent. Even the horses seemed to hold their breath. Marshal Briggs lowered his torch. "Richard, tell me this isn't true." "It's not. She's delusional. There's no diary." "Then prove it," Colt said. "Let's ride to Silver City right now. Let the territorial marshal investigate. If there's no diary, you have nothing to worry about." The mayor's mask cracked completely. 12 years of lies, of redirected guilt, of living with the knowledge that he'd protected his son and destroyed an innocent man. It all collapsed at once. "I couldn't lose him too," Richard whispered. "Rose was already gone. David was all I had from my first marriage. His mother died bringing him into this world. If David went to prison, I'd have nothing. No heir. No legacy." "So you fed me to the wolves," Colt said, his voice hollow. "You were nobody." The mayor's voice rose, desperate, pleading. A school teacher from back east, no family, no connections. It was easy to make them suspect you. You'd kept Rose after school to help with her reading. You'd been alone with her. All I had to do was suggest things. Let the town's imagination do the rest. "You lied under oath," Marshal Briggs said, his face pale. "You said you saw Colt's horse near the ravine that night." "I had to. The circuit judge was going to rule it an accident. The case was falling apart." Richard looked around wildly, seeking understanding. "I did what any father would do. I protected my son." "You destroyed an innocent man," Martha said. "You let Mr. Holloway suffer for 12 years while David lived free, while he married the governor's daughter, while he built his political career on Rose's grave. He survived," Richard pointed at Colt. "He's still here. He's alive." "Alive?" Colt's laugh was bitter. "You took everything from me. My career, my reputation, my life. I've been hiding in these mountains like an animal because your town wanted me hanged." "But you're breathing," the mayor's voice cracked. "Rose isn't. Don't you understand? I had to choose between my son and a man I didn't know. What would you have done?" "Told the truth," Colt said simply. Richard Thornton seemed to deflate. The gun lowered. He looked at the men around him, his friends, his allies, and saw only disgust. "Richard," the bank manager said slowly, "did you really frame Colt?" I did what I had to do." "And David?" the preacher asked, his voice shaking. "Did he really violate Rose, his own sister?" "It was an accident." "That's not what the diary says," Martha said. She held up the leather-bound book. "I lied about sending copies. I didn't have time, but it's all in here, every entry, every piece of evidence, and now all of you are witnesses to Father's confession." The mayor's face went from white to red. "You lying little?" He raised the gun toward Martha. Colt moved without thinking. 12 years of isolation hadn't made him slow. He crashed into Richard, driving him backward. The gun fired, the shot going wild into the night sky. They hit the ground hard. Richard was older, softer from years behind a desk. Colt had been hardened by survival. He pinned the mayor, wrenched the gun away, threw it into the darkness. "It's over," Colt panted. "It's done." Richard Thornton began to cry. Not the dignified tears of a grieving father, but the broken sobs of a man watching his world end. "My son," he wept. "My boy. What's going to happen to my boy?" "Justice," Martha said coldly, one hand on her swollen belly. Finally, Marshal Briggs made the decision. They would ride to Silver City at first light, bring the diary to the territorial marshal. Richard Thornton was placed under guard, not arrested, not yet, but watched. Martha stayed in Colt's cabin that night. He gave her his cot, made himself a bedroll by the fire. She was exhausted, her body pushed to its limits. "Thank you," she whispered in the darkness, "for believing me, for protecting me." "I didn't do it for you," Colt said honestly. "I did it because I know what it's like to be blamed for something you didn't do. Still, thank you." In the morning, they rode down together. The whole town had gathered. Word had spread like wildfire. The beast was coming down from the mountain. The mayor's daughter had accused her own father of covering up murder. The territorial marshal arrived 2 days later. Martha's diary was real. Rose's handwriting was verified by her old school books. The evidence was damning. The entries were worse than Martha had described. Rose's fear was palpable. David Thornton's violence escalated with each page, and the final entry, written the morning she died, was heartbreaking. "I am going to the marshal in Silver City today. I know Father will try to protect David. I know they will try to discredit me. But I cannot live like this anymore. If something happens to me, if I do not return, this is the truth. David Thornton has violated me, abused me, threatened to kill me, and I will not stay silent anymore. I would rather die free than live in fear. God forgive me. God help me. She never made it to Silver City. David caught her on the trail, forced her horse over the edge into Raven's Ravine. The fall should have killed her, but it didn't. So David climbed down and finished what he'd started. He strangled her, then called his father in a panic. Richard Thornton arrived with a plan. They staged it to look like Rose had been riding too fast, had lost control, had fallen. The town doctor, Richard's brother-in-law, ruled it an accidental death. Nobody questioned the grieving father's account until Colt became convenient. Mayor Richard Thornton was arrested for accessory to murder, obstruction of justice, and attempted murder of his daughter Martha. His son David, now a territorial congressman married to the governor's daughter, was arrested in the capital. The diary evidence was overwhelming. The town of Redemption Creek woke to the truth in the pages of every newspaper from Silver City to San Francisco. And Colt Holloway, the beast of Widow's Peak, was finally vindicated. The apologies came slowly, first from Marshal Briggs, who admitted he'd been too quick to believe Richard's lies, then from the other men who'd come to the cabin, then from the town council, who issued a formal statement exonerating Colt and offering compensation. Colt ignored them all. He stayed in his cabin, watching from his mountain as Redemption Creek tore itself apart. The scandal was territorial news. A mayor covering up his son's crime, an innocent man driven into exile, a sister's 12-year quest for truth. Reporters tried to ride up to interview Colt. He turned them all away, except one. 3 weeks after Richard's arrest, Martha appeared at his cabin. She was heavily pregnant now, due any day. "Mr. Holloway," she said, dismounting carefully, "I wanted to thank you properly and to apologize." Colt stared. "You have nothing to apologize for." "I do. I was 10 when Rose died. I believed Father's lies. I believed you hurt my sister. Martha's voice broke. "I threw rocks at your horse when you were leaving town. I screamed that you were a murderer. I was so angry." Colt remembered. The rocks, the screaming children, the hatred in their young faces. "You were a child," he said quietly, "and they lied to you. I know the truth now, about David, about Father." Martha wiped her eyes. "My whole life was a lie. Everything I thought I knew about my family. I'm sorry," Colt said, and meant it. "Can I ask you something?" Martha looked up at him. "Rose's diary. She mentioned you often. She said you were kind, that you noticed when she was struggling, that you tried to help. Did you suspect something was wrong?" Colt thought back 12 years. Rose, always bright, becoming withdrawn, flinching when men got too close, wearing long sleeves even in summer. "I suspected something," he admitted. "I asked if she needed help. She said no. I should have pushed harder. She was scared. Of David, of Father's power. It wasn't your fault." Martha pulled out an envelope. "This is from my husband, Thomas. He wanted me to give it to you." Colt took the envelope. Inside was a deed to a small ranch on the edge of town and a note. "Mr. Holloway, this land belonged to my father. He died believing you were guilty. I know better now. This is my apology. Use it to start over. Come back to teaching, or stay on your mountain. Whatever brings you peace. You saved my wife and unborn child. I can never repay that, but I can try." Thomas Walker Colt stared at the deed. It was enough to start over, to leave the mountain, to reclaim his life. "What will you do?" Martha asked. "I don't know," Colt admitted. Martha returned to the cabin on a cold January morning. She brought supplies and news from town, and a baby bundled in blankets. "This is Rose," she said, settling into the chair Colt had made. "Named after my sister. She was born the day David's trial started." "And the trial?" "Guilty on all counts, hanged last week." Martha's smile was bitter. Father got 20 years in territorial prison. He'll die there. Colt said nothing. He'd followed the case from a distance, reading newspapers Martha brought him. The town had turned on the Thorntons completely. David's wife had fled back east. Richard's businesses had been sold off. The family legacy was ashes. The school board contacted me, Martha continued. They want to offer you your position back, full pay, a formal apology. They're even naming the new schoolhouse after you. No, Colt said immediately. I told them you'd say that. Martha smiled. But they asked me to try. The new teacher, she's young, from back east. She thinks you could help heal the town. The town doesn't deserve healing. Maybe not, but the children do. The ones who had nothing to do with what happened to you. Martha leaned forward. Rose loved learning. She told me once that you made her feel like her thoughts mattered. That education wasn't just for boys, but for anyone who wanted it. Colt felt something crack in his chest. She was a brilliant student. She would have been a brilliant woman. If she'd lived. Martha's eyes glistened. You can't bring her back, but you could teach other students, other Roses. Isn't that worth something? I don't know if I can face that town. Then don't. There are other towns, other territories. You're only 40, Colt. You have half your life ahead of you. Martha stood, preparing to leave. But whatever you decide, know this. You're not the beast anymore. You're not the monster they made you. You're a good man who survived something terrible. Don't let them take anything else from you. She left the supplies and rode back down the mountain, baby Rose bundled against her chest. Colt stood on his porch, watching the sun set over Redemption Creek. The town looked peaceful from up here, beautiful even, but he knew the ugliness that lurked beneath. Could he go back? Could he face the people who destroyed him, even if they were sorry now? He didn't know. But for the first time in 12 years, he was considering it. Spring came to Widow's Peak. The snow melted, revealing green beneath. Colt planted a garden. Something he'd never done before. Potatoes, beans, squash. Signs of permanence, or maybe signs of change. Martha visited every few weeks, baby Rose growing bigger each time. They never pushed, never demanded. They just sat with him, sharing silence and stories. Thomas and I are thinking of moving, Martha said one April afternoon. To California. Start fresh where nobody knows our name. Would you come with us? Colt hesitated. I don't know. Think about it. No pressure. It was a small thing, but it was connection. It was possibility. In May, Colt rode down to Redemption Creek for the first time in 12 years. He didn't announce himself. He just walked through town, watching. People stared. Some looked away, ashamed. Others nodded, respectful. One old woman approached him outside the general store. Mr. Holloway, I'm Sarah Miller. You taught my daughter to read back in '75. She's a teacher now in Silver City. Because of you. Colt didn't know what to say. I'm sorry, Sarah continued, tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry for what this town did to you. You deserved better. Thank you, Colt managed. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was something. In June, Colt made his decision. He wouldn't return to Redemption Creek. That door was closed forever.